novel idea. I'm Dia if you're new here, and today I am going to be doing a Friday Reads, which is basically just where I talk about what I've been reading, what I'm going to continue reading, and maybe what's next. Thanks for coming. All right, so the first one that I want to talk about is one that I actually forgot to mention a couple weeks ago, and that is The Shades of Milk and Honey. And this is by Mary Robinette Kowal, and this was for Jane Austen July because it is a fantasy Regency era story. A little bit of romance, but not, I mean, it is centered around them trying to find husbands, but it's about two sisters. In this world, the fantasy element of it is that it's very important for women in this society to be gifted in enchantment, and kind of like what they do is they glamour things, and so they make things appear to be maybe more beautiful or more full, or just different things like that. They glamour themselves, they glamour their homes, they glamour their gardens, all of that kind of thing. And you would think that that would mean that they were not real, but in this glamoring, everything that is glamored is completely there and completely usable. The two sisters go from being kind of not enemies, but competitors, to being just the best of friends. And one sister kind of has to rescue another one. It was so much fun. It was Jane Austen-esque enough just from the time period without it being an absolute takeoff of one of her novels. So I really enjoyed this one. And this was an A- from me for a 93%. Okay, so another one that I read for Jane Austen July, this is Tooth and Claw, and this is by Jo Walton, who is a Canadian author. And this is the very first thing I've ever read by her, and I'm looking forward to reading more because this was really, really different. It says on here, the Pride and Prejudice of the Dragon World, but it didn't remind me so much of Pride and Prejudice. It actually reminded me a little bit more of Sense and Sensibility, but it is not dragons in our world, or humans are not in this at all. It is completely dragons. And some things that happen in this story would not happen if it was not for the fact that it is all dragon. And I liked this a lot. I wasn't sure at the beginning because it starts out pretty odd. I liked Jo Walton's take on what Regency dragons would operate like. And so it was really fun. It was fast. I got through it in literally a day and a half. I would recommend it. I gave it a solid A. This is a 95%, and I think that I will be rereading it at some point. It was really fun. Okay. And then the next one, also for Jane Austen July, is In the Garden with Jane Austen. And this is actually talking about her gardens at, is it Chatsworth? Chawton, at Chawton Cottage. This was pieced together from letters that she wrote to her sister during her time at this cottage, which was pretty much the only steady home that she had, her wealthy brother put her sister and her mother and a really good family friend, put them up in Chawton Cottage. I keep wanting to say college. I'm sorry, you guys. He put them up in this cottage and basically gave it to them and rent-free, and just said, this is yours for as long as you're alive. And so she lived out the rest of her days there and wrote a few books from there, but mainly she did the gardens. And so this was just kind of talking about what she did and what was working from year to year and what wasn't, and what kinds of new things she wanted to put in, and the improvements that her brother did prior to them moving in, and just all of that. And I love gardens and I love flowers, and this was just absolutely charming. It's full of pictures. It's the cottage and more of it. So it's very English, of course, but a lot of times it's just talking about the flowers that she was writing to her sister about, and how she was loving them or not loving them. I just loved it, you guys. Little short book. I really enjoyed this one. I don't usually give my nonfiction a grade, but it was very, very good, very enjoyable. The last one that I got through this week was The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. And this is a reread for me because I never went on in the series. I read The Raven Boys, but I didn't read anything else. So I thought, I'm going to revisit The Raven Boys first, and then I'll move on in the series. So The Raven Boys, if you don't know, it is about 4 friends who go to a very prestigious school in a fairly small town. Beauty of this story is really the friendship that these kids have with one another, and just the loyalty and the camaraderie that they have, even though they are all very, very different, very, very flawed. So the story as a whole is basically about this king, Wales king, that has died, and they believe that his body has been brought to the Americas and buried somewhere in the Americas. And the kind of the lead boy of the group is on a hunt to prove or disprove that this king is in this area where the school is. They try to find ley lines and all of this other kind of stuff in order to find this king, awaken him, and be granted some sort of wish. And it is sad and it is hard at times. It's an A- for me. And if it wasn't for some of the subject matter, it would probably be higher than that. This is a 91% A- book that I'm planning on moving on in the series in. So that's everything that I completed this week. In the middle of The Darkness Shows the Stars, this is a science fiction, or at least futuristic, where there has been a science experiment done to humanity that basically wiped humanity out in many ways. Anybody that was left is really smart, and those that are really smart have formed like their own nobility. So this is like almost like a persuasion retelling, in the fact that it is this girl here, Elliot, is trying to save her family as their fortunes are changing. And she chose family over love several years before. And now her love interest is coming back into her life, and he happens to be a ship's captain. This is definitely different stakes. So I'm enjoying it so far. I'm not very far in. I am on page 107, so I'm about 100 pages in is all I'm into this one. So I am also reading Borges and Me, and this is by Jay Parini. And I heard about this from Camila at Haste Books, and I like Borges. So I was ready to pick this up, and it's a true story. It's nonfiction. It's about when the author met Borges, and they became friends and then traveled around Scotland together. Two very endearing things to me, Borges and Scotland. And I am reading also a book called Angel of Crows, and it is by Katherine Addison, a like Sherlock kind of spin-off, fantasy-esque spin-off. Sherlock is a human-esque angel whose wings are black instead of white, which usually indicates a fallen angel, but in his case, him becoming a fallen angel never actually took place, but he was like in the wrong place at the wrong time. He happens to be the Angel of London, friend and sidekick whose name is Doyle. That's Dr. Doyle. And they solve mysteries. She is the author, Katherine Addison, is the author of The Goblin Emperor. And I loved The Goblin Emperor so much I wanted to try another one. And this is completely different, but it's still kind of a fun read. I mean, in the way that Sherlock is fun. She didn't try to make it so Sherlock that it is disappointing, and I'm having fun with it. So it's Sherlock with vampires, werewolves, goblins. It's really fun, and angels. Yeah, it's really fun. Next, after I get done with these, I do not know what is next. For The Darkness Shows the Stars is my last one for what I planned on reading for Jane Austen July. So that's the end of that. I have books that I have holds on that haven't come in yet, so I'm assuming when those holds come in, that is what I will be reading. So that's everything, you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, that you're having a lovely Friday, and that you are reading some really good stuff. So thanks again for joining me. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to. I'll see you in the next video, everybody.